prepping this side so I can start welding it. My plan is to use my spot welder to weld around these door frames. And since they're up away from any potential salt from the roads and moisture, you have to keep that metal perfectly clean. You can't use a weld-through primer when you're using a spot welder. It just doesn't get hot enough to burn through that weld-through primer. Now around here, I plan on welding this, and I'm just going to drill holes. You can see I've drilled holes through this skin, and then I've ground all the back side of it, and I'll spray all of this area with a good weld-through primer. I use a lot of Eastwood products, so I will spray this on, and it'll be all up along the back window area and then all down the back side of the cab. I've got a primer that's on a little tube that I can get back into the back side of this and spray for this lower area. The top section, I've cleaned up the back side for the panel bond adhesive that I'll be using along this top piece. Once I get the panel bond in here, then I'll get it up into place and I'll screw it into place. There's just a few sheet metal screws that'll hold this until that panel bond is set. And then I sanded the outside of this sheet so that I can prime it and then use a sealer all along this area once it's completely set. And then I can prime over that sealer and it's ready to paint. Well, of course I still need to weld the ends and a few other things, but yeah, you get the idea. In order for the panel bond to bond to this area, it has to be stripped clear down to bare metal. And then I cut this flange off of the new panel so that that flange will come right down and rest on the top of this piece. So I need to get all the sealant, the seam sealer out. So I'll just run a screwdriver in there and get all that seam sealer out, and then the panel bond will ooze down into the bottom of that, and then I can just wipe it away with the rag for any excess. And then I'll come back in like the factory did and cover that with a seam sealer, and you'll never know that that's been changed that way. I'll just get some air pressure in here and blow all that out, and this panel is ready to goop up with panel bond and then set it into place, and I'll screw it down. As I'm getting this prepped, I put it on for one last time to check the fit and make sure everything was good before I bond it on. Luckily I did. I just remembered I need to put the plate on the back side of this. There was 2 spot welds, and then it welded to this seam. So I need to get that prepped and get that on. As you can see, I cut this piece out of the mangled old sheet, and I used it as a pattern to drill my holes for the welds that I'll use to weld this piece in place. So that's where the 2 spot welds were, and these were where it was spot welded to the jamb. So I went ahead and drilled this jamb. Instead of spot welding it, it's got a bunch of holes in it that I had to drill in order to straighten it out. You can see all the holes that I've drilled when I was using a puller along here. So I'll go ahead and weld this seam up. So I need to spray my weld-through primer on this seam as well as those pieces. It's really strange that this strike plate that is so critical to getting these gaps in the doors aligned is not adjustable. Typically, these will have an adjustment. You can move them up and down and in and out just a little bit, but the bracket that this is bolting to, that piece where the nuts are, the threaded nuts, that's welded in. So it's very crucial to get that exactly where it needs to be. because there's no moving it. So I had to do a lot of adjusting and aligning and marking these holes so that it is perfectly in place before I weld it. I think I'm ready now to get out the panel bond and squeeze it all out across the back side of this. And then I've got a little brush and brush it out smooth, and then I'll drop it on top. Well, this is first for me. I've seen it done, but I've never actually done it myself. So this is the panel bond adhesive. It's just a multi-purpose. It's designed for areas like the top of the door side. They don't recommend to do all of it. There's some specifics in all the instructions on what areas you have to weld. So what I'm doing is exactly to what the manufacturer specifies. And to start this out, you just squeeze out a little bit of material from both sides. And then we will apply the tip, which is the mixing tip. Now that is ready. I'll get it mixed all the way to the tip just by gradually pumping that forward. I'll squeeze out just a little bit of material. That's about right. I'll let that drip for a minute while I get everything else prepared. I have 90 minutes to apply this and get it all set, and get it screwed into place. That's my working time, and then it cures in 4 hours. Well, 24 hours, but it is bonded in 4 hours. So, clock starts now. I got an hour and a half. Should be plenty of time. So I'll start with putting a bead along both edges. It's an L shape on the roof. I'll put a bead along that L shape, and then I'll brush it in, and then I'll do the same thing to the side panel. I'll brush it out. Basically, it's like painting it on all the metal surface. It needs to be bare metal. Cover all that bare metal area. Okay, now I'll apply it to the side panel. If you're wondering what brush I'm using, it's just the little acid brushes. I've used them for soldering. It's going to be a little tougher on this panel because it's a real tight L shape. I'm going to get up and around the back side of it. Couldn't get the brush in there, just had to get my finger in it. Okay, ready to set it on. I've got alignment screws across the top. All I can do now is just hope for the best. I'm sure I got plenty of adhesive in there. I know I have it all aligned where it needs to be. I've got a slight gap on this edge for welding, and then I've got my seam along the back glass. So, not bad. It took me 15-20 minutes to apply all that adhesive and drop it into place. I guess I can go on to getting things prepped and start welding while this cures. This is all perfectly aligned. Happy with that. I wish I could see the back side of it. I would love to know how much adhesive is squeezing out along that edge. Well, actually, I can see the back side of it, and it is oozing out along that edge. So looks like I've got really good coverage. Most body men that I've talked to that have been around a while, that have done projects like this, also have stories about catching a car on fire. So make sure you have a good fireproof mat when you're doing welding like this. My story, I caught a '69 Camaro Coupe Rally Sport on fire, welding a quarter panel on, and the fire went up into the insulation and burned the headliner out, and it had a vinyl top. That was an expensive repair. Wasn't a total loss, but not something I ever want to do again. So make sure you have a fireproof mat, make sure you have a fire extinguisher nearby, make sure you have any little crevices where the sparks can fall down into, cover it up, because it never fails. Something starts to smoke. No smoke, no fire. So you'll notice all my clamps. While I was welding that corner up there, and I was looking at everything and how it was all prepped and planning my next area, this was so well prepped and fit so well, I went ahead and put panel bond down both sides of it, and then I'll weld across the bottom, and I'll weld the top. Between the heat of welding and the heat of grinding, this flat spot has moved on me a little bit. You can see, I don't know if you can see that with the camera, but when I take a curve, a plastic curve, and run it across it, I can see low spots. There's a low spot here and here, a low spot here. So I'm going to use my stud gun, and I'm going to lift those back up. I tried to get in behind it, but I just can't get enough pressure. It doesn't take much. So now you can see this area is all prepped and ready. This area is pretty well prepped and ready. And we've got this area all ready. I'll just clip those little studs off and grind that smooth, and then I'll clean up all of this area. And what I'll do is I will prime all of this with an epoxy primer and seal it up really good. But before I do that, I need to sand off all of this black coating. Put the doors on for one last time, just to make sure, absolutely positive, everything fits before I
finish up all the body work and prime it and get it ready for paint. Because now's the time, if there's anything off a little bit, I need to cut and weld and do whatever I need to, but it is perfect. Perfect gaps, perfect door alignment. They latch exactly the way they should. Gaps are just the way they should be. Pretty exciting. I just got to pull it off, sand it all down, and get it ready to paint. Thanks for checking out my channel. I'm here to learn, to teach, and hopefully to inspire. So hit my subscribe button. I really appreciate you subscribing. Leave me a comment. I love hearing from you. If you like what I'm doing, please give me a like. Thanks again for watching.